World-famous bedtime stories from Mom. Today's story is Rapunzel. Once upon a time in a small village there lived a happy couple. Mrs. Lettuce was about to have a baby, and one day she suddenly had an incredible craving for lettuce. "Oh, look at all that green lettuce!" she exclaimed as she stood by the window and looked out at her neighbor's garden. The neighbor's garden was full of amazingly beautiful flowers and delicious vegetables. One thing that stood out in particular was the luscious lettuce. But there was one problem. The neighbor's owner was a very scary witch that no one wanted to approach. Mrs. Lettuce really wanted to eat it, but if she got caught, she'd be in trouble. Every day she stood by the window and stared at her lettuce. Her husband looked at her with concern and said, "Don't worry, I'll think of something." But the desire to eat the lettuce grew stronger and stronger. "Oh, I really want to eat it, please husband, please get me some lettuce." The wife was hungry and felt that her body was getting weaker. The husband saw his wife's desperation and decided, "No way, I'm going to get some lettuce somehow." One dark evening he mustered up the courage to sneak into the witch's garden. With cautious steps he looked around and around until he finally got his hands on the most coveted-looking bunch of lettuce. "I hope this will make my wife happy." The husband ran home with the lettuce in his arms. When he brought home the lettuce, a huge smile spread across his wife's face. She took a bite of the lettuce and marveled, "I've never had lettuce that tasted so good." But her happiness was short-lived, and the next day her craving for lettuce was even stronger. "Husband, could you please get some more?" The wife's eyes were filled with a desperate desire for lettuce. But at that moment he suddenly heard a terrifying voice behind him. Her husband's heart ached as he watched her face from my garden and let me see. "I can't do this, I can't do this, I can't do this, not one more time." He turned around and there stood the witch, her eyes glowing, her face flushed red with anger. That night he sneaked into the witch's garden again. My husband was terrified and fell to his knees on the floor. He decided to take more lettuce. He said, "Please, please forgive me." After climbing over the fence and sneaking into the garden, and she wanted to eat lettuce so badly that I had to. Now his wife's voice was trembling and his hands were clasped together humbly in front of the witch, trembling with fear. The witch stared at the husband, then suddenly raised one corner of her mouth and said, "I forgive you, but I need you to promise me one thing." The husband knelt before the scary witch and listened to her words. "Please forgive me. For the sake of our baby." The husband's voice was desperate. That's when the witch made a condition. "Okay, but when your wife has a baby you must give it to me and I will give you this lettuce." The husband's eyes widened. "A baby? But Edie." The husband hesitated for a long time, but thinking of his wife's health and the safety of the baby he had no choice but to give in to the witch's demands. "I promise. I will give the baby to the witch." At that moment a smile spread across the witch's face. Months passed and the woman gave birth to a healthy baby. The baby was the most adorable thing in the world. The woman and her husband were happy to see their baby. But their happiness was short-lived, for the time of their appointment had come. "Now you haven't forgotten your appointment, have you?" One day the witch suddenly appeared and demanded the baby. The husband and wife's hearts were breaking, but they couldn't break their promise to the witch. So they gave the baby to the witch, who gave her the name Rapunzel. Rapunzel grew more beautiful and intelligent with each passing day, but when she turned 12, the witch decided to hide her from the world. The witch locked Rapunzel in a tall, tall tower. The tower was so high that no one could enter, and Rapunzel had to stay there alone. The tower had no stairs, no doors, and only Rapunzel's long hair hung down through a window in the tower. Her hair was so long that it could have wrapped around the tower many times. Every day the witch would come to the tower and call out to Rapunzel, "Rapunzel, let your hair down," and Rapunzel would go to the window, untangle her hair, and let it fall down the tower. That long hair was the only way the witch could get up to the tower. When the witch came up to the tower, Rapunzel would always greet her, "Mother, what good stories have you brought me today?" Rapunzel was lonely, but she was always positive and cheerful. Rather than answer Rapunzel's questions, the witch always maintained a stern demeanor. "Stories? I don't have time for stories. You must stay safe here. The outside world is a dangerous place for you." But Rapunzel couldn't hide her curiosity about the outside world, and after the witch left, she muttered to herself, "What kind of world is there beyond? I hope to leave this tower one day and see it all for myself." In her heart, there was a longing to leave the tower and feel free, and she expressed her dreams and hopes through song. Rapunzel's song filled the forest, and her voice echoed far and wide. Rapunzel was trapped in that tower, but her heart and her dreams always flew free. She knew one day her dreams would come true. A prince was walking through the forest when he suddenly heard a beautiful song that caught his ear. The sound drowned out all the noise in the forest and stopped the prince in his tracks. Following the sound, the prince was unknowingly drawn to where it was coming from. Finally, he was standing in front of a tall, old tower. There, the singing grew clearer, and the prince noticed a blonde girl singing from a window at the top of the tower. Every day, the prince returned to the bottom of the tower to listen to her sing. His heart fell more and more for her, and eventually he couldn't resist his desire to meet Rapunzel. He looked around the tower, but he couldn't see a way to get in. Then one day he heard a witch shout, "Come down, Rapunzel's hair." The prince realized how he could climb into the tower. The next day the prince gathered up his courage and called out, "Rapunzel hair, come down." Rapunzel was surprised to hear a stranger's voice, but her innocence and curiosity led her. She let her hair down, the prince caught it, and they climbed up to the tower. Their meeting was magical. Rapunzel saw another person's face for the first time, and the prince was completely mesmerized by her beauty and innocence. The prince confessed his love to her, and she accepted his heart. But they both hated the idea of Rapunzel being trapped in this tower. The prince came up with a plan to rescue Rapunzel from the tower. He promised Rapunzel that he would visit her secretly every night, and together they devised an escape plan. "I'm going to get you out of this tower," the prince told Rapunzel, "and we'll be free to live together." Rapunzel was encouraged by his words, and the two began to dream of a happy future together. The prince and Rapunzel grew in their love for each other and never lost hope, even in the face of seemingly impossible odds. Their love gave them the strength to overcome all obstacles. The prince and Rapunzel's love grew deeper and deeper. They met secretly every night, plotting their escape and sharing their dreams for the future. But it wasn't all going to be smooth sailing. The witch was clever and manipulative, and she eventually discovered their secret. One day the witch rode Rapunzel's hair up to the tower as usual, but her eyes were dark and cold. "Rapunzel, you have deceived me. You have let a man from the outside world into the tower. How can I ever forgive you for such a betrayal?" Rapunzel trembled with fear and replied, "Please forgive me, mother. I only wanted to be with the one I love." But the witch's mind was already made up. She decided to punish Rapunzel in cold blood. The witch cut off Rapunzel's golden hair and banished her to a forsaken land, a desolate place where no one would find her. Rapunzel was left alone and had to fight for survival. She reminded herself of her promise to the prince she loved and vowed to survive no matter what. Meanwhile, the witch decided to trap the prince. When the prince visited the tower again, the witch lured him in by imitating Rapunzel's voice. "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let your head fall." The prince climbed the tower with joy, but instead of his beloved Rapunzel, he found a furious witch waiting for him. "I'll make sure you're reunited with Rapunzel," the witch sneered as she cursed the prince and pushed him off the tower. The prince was unfortunate enough to be gouged in the eye by a branch, leaving him blind. He was left alone in despair, without Rapunzel and without his sight. But the power of love is powerful. The blind prince wandered endlessly in search of Rapunzel, and she kept her love for him close to her heart, hoping that one day they would be reunited. Many years passed, and the blind prince wandered endlessly, the only comfort in his heart being the memory of his beloved Rapunzel. He searched for her day after day, hoping to hear her voice. Until one day he heard a beautiful song in the woods, and it was Rapunzel's song. The prince trudged toward the source of the sound, and finally, he found her in an abandoned garden. When Rapunzel recognized him, she ran to him and hugged him tightly. "Prince, you don't know how much I've missed you," she said, crying. Her tears ran down the prince's face and, miraculously, restored his sight. The prince could see again, and as he looked at Rapunzel's beautiful form, he said, "Rapunzel, my love, you have opened my eyes again. We can now be happy together." The two held each other tightly and didn't part for a long time, as if they were making up for lost time. The prince and Rapunzel returned to the prince's kingdom and began a new life together. The people of the kingdom welcomed them back with joy, and the story of their love spread throughout the land. They were touched to hear of the adventures Rapunzel had and the prince's devoted love. The prince and Rapunzel became the most beloved couple in the kingdom, and their love grew deeper and deeper over time. They faced many challenges, but through it all, they realized the meaning of true love. Their love story became a legend that has stood the test of time, spreading a message of love and hope to everyone. Prince and Rapunzel lived happily ever after for many years.